There's this concept developed years ago by a guy called Stephen Covey who was writing about efficiency and effectiveness, and the concept is called essentially big stones in first. It means this. It means you have to put the big things in first. You know this. Let's say if you can remember back into the olden days when you were allowed to pack a car for a holiday, you got to put the big suitcases in first and then put the little bits and bobs around it. If you pack the boot full of little bits and bobs and then try and bring in the monster suitcase, it isn't going to fit. You know this from Christmas dinner when you had to put the turkey in the oven first and then you put the pigs in blankets and the potatoes around it. If you fill the oven with potatoes and pigs in blankets, there's no room for a turkey. If you've had to rebox a Christmas present and send it back, you have to put the big bit in first and then shove all the other bits in around it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. The principle works with physically big things, but it works with important things as well. It was developed about efficiency and effectiveness, so if you've got a task to do, if you've got a whole list of tasks to do the important ones first, give them primary focus and attention, and the rest can fit in around it. Maybe you've got to vaccinate a whole country against a disease, and so you choose the important people, the most at risk first, and then you fit everybody else around them. So, inspired by that principle, each year at St. Mark's we start the year looking at our 3 big stones. Everything else can pause for a little while whilst we focus on faith, hope and love. So we kick off with faith. Faith in Jesus. Jesus who is our inspiration and our motivation. Jesus who is the Saviour. Jesus who is the one around whom we gather. Jesus who is the one who, if you were to take him away from St. Mark's, you're left with not a whole load. Jesus, though, it turns out, who sometimes gathers dust. When I was a kid, we had the best plates, the best china, the best cutlery, and we would reserve those. They'd be in the back of a cupboard, ready to be used when we had guests for lunch, but only important guests. Some guests wouldn't get the best plates, but some would, or if it was Christmas time, the best stuff would come out, and we would treat that lovingly, and well, it would even get warmed up, these plates, before you put any food on them. Likewise, I've got a suit. I got a really nice suit. I bought it for a wedding once. I was officiating at it. I was going to be in photos. I had to look good. Couldn't wear my normal crummy clothes. And so I got this really nice suit. It cost an absolute truckload of money to buy. The plates and the suit, well, they hardly get any use. I've worn the suit about 4 times in about 4 years. The best plates, they hardly ever got used, and you have to dust them every time you use them. Sometimes Jesus gathers dust because we think he's too important or too formal for us to use all the time. Have you ever had something which is super important? It might be a piece of paper, it might be a letter, it might be some password or a code that you need to remember, it might be a gift that you've got, it might be a piece of jewellery and maybe the necklace snapped and you need to take it to the jeweller's to get it fixed. Something important, and so because it's important, where do you put it? You put it somewhere safe because you don't want anything bad to happen. You want to remember exactly where it is so that when you've got time to devote to this important thing, you'll be able to find it. Months go past, weeks go past, hours go past, days go past, and you suddenly remember the important thing, the letter, the note, the piece of jewellery, whatever it was. Can you find it? Can you ever? Because you can't remember where the important place was. Where is the safe place for all the important things? You can't remember. Sometimes Jesus gathers dust because we think he's important, and so we put him somewhere important, and we know that we'll come back to him at some point, but then we can't remember where we left him. The worst text messages I ever have to send are ones to friends and people I really like, and it starts with this. It's an apology for not having replied to a text that you sent me 4, 5, 6 days ago. It doesn't happen often, but every now and again I'll get this text. I think, that's important. I'm going to give it time. I want to respond to that. I don't want to rush through it like everything else I'm doing right now. I'm going to come back to that. But then that text just gets buried under a load of others and gets moved down my screen. Or maybe it's a letter or a bill and you think, that's important, I'm going to put it to the side of my desk. Maybe that piece of homework, that's important, I'm going to put it to the side of my desk. And then other stuff gets put on top of it. Maybe it's a time demand, you think, I'm going to do this thing that I really want to do, and I'm going to do it on Thursday evening. And I know I've got a free evening on Thursday, so I can do it. And then stuff gets put on top of it on Thursday evening, and you just have to run that little errand, make that quick little phone call, complete that job, and then before you know it, it's bedtime. Sometimes Jesus gathers dust because he was so important that he left him, and then other stuff got piled on top. sometimes Jesus just gets buried under busyness. Let's be honest, there's so much going on. You've got Facebook, Insta and Twitter to keep on top of. You've got meals to cook, 3 of them a day some people want. You've got work to do, school to do, homeschool and work to do. You've got to find out what on earth is happening in America and Brexit and whether we're going to get vaccinated. And you've got to figure out, can you get a shop ready for a click and collect in 2 weeks' time? Then you've got to find, where's the mask? I've just got a new mask, but I can't find it anywhere. I'm not allowed to go in the shop to get more milk without the mask. You need to write some people, you need to think ahead of time, because now those people that you would have just said happy birthday to, you want to send them a card this year because you haven't seen them for a year. But then you've got to think, what's the postal service like? Then there's a whole series on Netflix that somebody just told you is unmissable, and so you put it on a list with all the other unmissable series that you need to keep up with. Life is busy. Sometimes Jesus just gets buried under the busyness. For some things, I am a procrastinator. There are some chores that I hate doing. One of the chores I hate doing is taking out the bins. We have this bin in our kitchen sink, not in our kitchen sink, under our kitchen sink, in the cupboard under our kitchen sink, and stuff just gets piled on top of it until one of us, usually Laura, flips out and says, for goodness sake, we need to take the bin out. But it's because taking the bin out has become a chore. I don't want to do it, so I put it off. It's just monotonous and repetitive. I feel the same about cutting the grass. I don't enjoy washing up. I hate hanging out the washing. I mean, I don't hang out the washing up. That's a completely different thing. Sometimes Jesus feels like a chore. You know you should spend time with him. You know you should read the Bible. Somebody told you it would be great to pray. But honestly, it just feels like a chore. Maybe you spent a year trying to read through the Bible in a year, and just by the time you got to mid-March, you were like, I'm done, I'm already a month behind. Sometimes Jesus gets dusty because a relationship with him feels like a chore. So at the start of this year, my encouragement is always this. I don't have all the answers. I don't know where we're headed. But I do know that keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus is of primary importance always. Let's be honest, around St. Mark's, life is pretty busy. And sometimes, even here, Jesus gets buried under busyness. Sometimes I expect my relationship, my time with Jesus to be so good, and I'm disappointed when it isn't, and so I put it off. Sometimes I think I really want to invest in time with Jesus, so I'll wait a little bit until I've got time, but then that time never actually happens. Sometimes he feels like best China. Whatever it is for you, my encouragement would be, could we be honest enough to look at ourselves and our relationship with Jesus and ask the question, have we put him as a big stone in first in our lives? Is he a big stone in my diary? Is he a big stone in my priorities for the day? Would I rather spend 50 minutes scrolling through Insta, or would I rather spend a few minutes just with Jesus? There's this guy called Richard Rohr who speaks and writes brilliantly. He's an old guy now. And I heard him recently describe a relationship with God like this. He said, it's like prayer is like playing throw and catch with somebody. Imagine a summer's evening. It feels like a long time ago now, but imagine a summer's evening where somebody who is good and somebody who is kind and somebody who looks you in the eye and somebody who values time with you and somebody who will listen as you talk but also be okay with silence says to you, do you want to play catch? And you just spend some time just throwing this ball to one another. Oh, hey, let me tell you about this thing that happened. Oh, can I tell you about this other thing that hurts? Can I listen for a little bit? I love that image of playing throw and catch in the cool of the evening with a good, kind, gracious, glorious, powerful, wonderful Jesus. Gang, who knows what else is coming up this year? My encouragement is always, before we get busy, there are going to be more meals to serve, there'll be some more projects to pioneer, there'll be some more adventures to go on, there'll be some more marshmallows to toast, there'll be some more fun to have, there'll be some more bumps in the road. But first, if nothing else, it's important for me, and I think for you, to say, Jesus, you're first in.